Alright, Inmendham video on kind of a strangled subject of existential passage, death. How to perceive this circumstance of our being alive and then being dead, and then kind of being alive and then kind of being dead, and the idea that we've sort of been here and done that, in the sense that every living thing has these similar mechanisms of feeling alive, awareness, if you want to call it that, being a conscious being on planet Earth, and how in a sense, to use a Nietzschean term of reoccurrence, and then it would also connect to the less friendly kind of word like reincarnation. The idea that we are both the slave owner and the slave. We're both the rich man and the poor man. We're both the healthy man and the diseased person. It's consciousness is just a state of being, and whenever something's in that state, we can sort of claim understanding it, at least at a minimum, empathy, a kind of I can imagine being, because I have been, so I can imagine being a being. I can feel their pain. I can understand the dilemma of arriving on Earth, being challenged by a certain whatever's vogue at the time, the the technology of the time. I can understand learning how to adapt to the environment, trying to master it in some way, and then becoming attached to pieces of it, and loving and having passions and doing this and doing that, and then having it all stripped away and dying. So it's a common experience, and in a sense we can all claim to value it, in a sense of not wanting to see it degraded or harmed or embarrass itself. Be in a form that's insufficient to its dignity. If humans got a disease and actually became zombies, we might have an empathy and say, these are human beings, these are people. And yes, they've gone all kind of crazy now, and they're eating each other's brains, and that's very unpleasant, and it's embarrassing to watch, and we wouldn't want them to be in that condition, causing each other harm and such. So we can sort of claim as if it's almost like a pet, So in a way, the only way to deal with this kind of subject, I think, is to separate yourself and to recognize that it's like you have to look at humans as we look at rats or some other thing, and just see them in this interaction and say, well, if I had ownership of a colony of rats, if I was at all rational, I would understand that I don't want the rats eating each other's feet off, and I don't want them shitting on each other, or I don't want them to have to live poorly. I want them to live well. I want their consciousness to enjoy, elegant existence, running the wheel a little bit, have a cigarette on the couch, have a nice little rat life, not do things that are counterproductive and destructive to the welfare of the conscious beings, not causing unnecessary suffering. So when we view the future and say, what are its prospects, and understand that we, when we are dead, there will be new people being created in the future, and they will face exactly the circumstance we faced, and we would hope that they would be free to be educated and to acquire refined sensibilities, and to know the difference between being rational and being Islamic, you know. You know, simple things like that, and they be able to make these right choices and have the opportunity to acquire what we find to be graceful or reasonable sensibilities, where you know enjoy doing things like eating broccoli rather than torturing pigs and frying them up in a pan or something, and that kind of stuff, that you would learn that these consciousnesses would hopefully behave and live in a way that was less harmful. And ideally, from my perspective, you wouldn't bother imposing the obligation to figure all that crap out, and just leave it alone. So proper analogies again would be thinking as if you were God, and all of these consciousnesses were your responsibility. So every single one of them's welfare in a way is on you, and you have to account for who gets ruined, and who wins and who loses horribly, and who gets their legs ripped off, and whatever happens. And from that sense, understanding that it's the same thing as if it were me, the victims are me in a sense. They're no different than me. They're an 8-ball. And so even that's a way of thinking about it. I suppose you could think of in terms of, we have properties. So like pool balls, they can come in different colors. There's stripes and there's solids. There's blue and there's yellow and there's green and different colors. So there's some variety in what we can manifest as. And you'd sort of want the cue balls to be the things that are good things to be, the good colors, the good patterns, and avoid being the 8-ball, the bad patterns, the patterns that are suffering and abused and have bad luck. And so if you in life, when you're a pool ball, you live as an 8-ball, you're going to automatically have some empathy and some understanding that, you don't want to do that 8-ball thing. Don't want to do that over again. You don't want to make any more 8-balls. You want to try to protect the future from having this wasteful unpleasantness existing, this torture and suffering. And the trick is that a lot of the pool balls don't know they're 8-balls. They're running around like retards, with their pink balloon after the Olympics, where they pissed their pants and got a gold medal for it, thinking, I won, I'm a winner. And they didn't win anything. It's a silly culture that's pretending to give them some victory, but there was no victory won. No real one. It's just one perceived in their head. And that they were very expensive in their life. They caused much harm and suffering. They left the place much dirtier than they got it, and all that kind of crap. And they just have a delusion that they won somehow. Even though they watched their own kids die of cancer or something. Somehow that made sense. It worked out okay. They're dead. So anyway, so this guy, whatever, meta character, who used to be somebody else. Well, anyway, he, drags me into this conversation, and it's such a dangerous conversation, because as soon as you start talking about the idea that the future is you, that you're going to live in it in a sense. Consciousness is going to experience it. And it's not going to be any different than you experiencing it, except, yes, they'll be wearing a different sweater. Some superficial things will be different. There'll be a different mixture, but the idea of a tormented soul will exist, so you can identify with that. The idea of somebody who was, I almost was a contender. I was a contender. You almost got there, but a couple of things got in the way and fucked your life and blah blah blah, and you spent the rest of your life just bemoaning the fact that you should have been somebody. There'll be all kinds of things that you'll fit into a category of human being who got caught up in mistakes, got herpes or got fat or got something, and, you know, spiraled into some sort of bad habits. Um, you know, we all kind of can empathize with that and understand that, gee, if I was going to do this all over again, I sure would like protections against making those same dumb fucking mistakes. And, you know, all the potheads now talking all their pot shit, and, you know, in their later years, they're probably just going to realize, gee, how much of a life did I squander? How much of my opportunity on this planet did I just piss away on just absolute bullshit? And it would be sensible if human beings had these conversations where, you know, they could learn from experience of the people who have lived, and, you know, but the problem is that most people who have lived are just so dishonest, you know, because they have to defend their life, so they don't give anybody any good advice. They just kind of say, yeah, make the same mistakes I made. I'll feel better if you keep doing it. You know, don't get smarter than me, because they'll make me look stupid. So they won't even have the honest conversation. A lot of people who've had just horrible lives, terrible messes made out of their lives. You know, they're 75 years old, heading down the spiraling down the drain. You know, and they're still talking like, you know, when you're going to have grandkids, blah, blah, blah. You know, when you're going to, they're still talking as if there's some sense to investing, you know, in the game. And there's so few of them who are, what they should be is, you know, kind of explaining in a simple way that, look, I made all these mistakes, drinking, smoking, this, that, you know, really dumb, stupid things to do. Stepped in a lot of shit. You know, life's tricky, and you don't want to end up, you know, having to lament your mistakes and have no way to fix them. You know. So, but anyway, so this is it's a tricky conversation, like I said, because it gets into woo so fast. So anyway, he has this 11-minute video, and I mean, I'll play little pieces of it, I guess, but I actually don't even see the point of it, because it talks about it as if it is some sort of, like, there's such even a thing as existential, like somehow it's some extra bit or something beyond our life or our reasoning or our rational perception of just understanding that we're all alligators, and, you know, it's only little subtleties that we are able to identify differences between alligator 200 years ago and alligator, you know, now, and alligator 100 years from now. Because if we were doing it, we'd just say, yeah, there's no difference in the alligator today than the alligator yesterday, or the alligator 100 years ago, or the alligator 400 years ago. It's the same fucking thing. It's just alligator. But clearly they all were individual alligators, and they did have individual habits and little quirks of their very own that they had acquired and learned. And we just don't have any appreciation for those. Where, as humans, we have intense appreciation for just little subtle differences. You know, Democrat, Republican. You know, all kinds of ideological differences, personality quirks, mannerisms, you know, hair color, eye color, all kinds of little qualities that we, holy shit, I wouldn't want to live as one of them. You know, you know, I don't get you. You know, lots of I don't get yous over trivial differences, and I would argue that some of that is legitimate, because I would argue that some of those things are the most important aspects of your existence, is your capacity to understand the danger of the game you're playing, the risks involved, how important it is when you involve yourself with other people that you are aware of the fact that, you know, they could become dependent and they could have, you know, it's all on you, because if you didn't interfere in their life, somebody, Prince Charming, was, you know, waiting in the wings to take care of them, and their life would have been so much better if you didn't show up and ruin it. These are real complications, and people who have no awareness of that are are monsters, you know, because this is a China shop, and they're just fucking gorillas. You know, they're baboons in the China shop. Gorillas got some chance of not making too big of a mess, but a baboon, no, they're going to make a mess. And, you know, so it's a legitimate critique to say this is not a condition I want human beings to be in. I don't want them to be baboons, you know, breaking things, making messes, causing harm, pain and suffering with their reckless, glib, sloppy, ignorant mentality, you know, where they can't spend 3 fucking minutes, ever thinking about anything beyond what do I want, nothing about consequences, you know, nothing about the litter, the clutter, the crud they leave behind. And that's, yeah, and that makes almost a different animal. So almost it's the fact that we look just like each other, we look like alligators, but now we're completely different animals in a sense. That difference in philosophy is all the difference. There can't be a bigger difference. So that gets into this subject a little. So it's bad to imagine coming back as another victim, you know, coming back having to endure, oh, I'm going to be born in Iran and be programmed to be a jackass, an absolute ignorant, stupid fuck. You know, and worse, oh, you come back as the Ayatollah. You know, you come back as some monster who's making the big messes. You know, as bad as it is to come back as a poor man, it's even more disgusting to come back as a rich one. Because they're the bigger criminal. So yes, this conversation has potential to be valuable, but it's so dangerous because you can't really talk about it with people making woo out of it, making some sort of religious statement like there's a spirit, or like I said, even calling it something like awareness existentially passes. That's just such bullshit. No, you just either make, the assembly mind either makes cue balls or it doesn't make cue balls. There's no passage. There's no, a cue ball breaks over here and a new cue ball happens over here and awareness passes to them. Cue ballness passes somehow between them. No, there's no passage. There's no connections. That rubbish is just woo. It's just religious rubbish. So he throws that crap in this video as if, you know, it means something. He has he quotes some asshole he thinks is somehow reasonable or impressive as a philosopher, who basically says, I'm not implying any woo, but yeah, it's wooey that we pass on. And I mean, it's not a religion, except, yeah, it's got a dogma in it and it's got some little story, but it's not a religion, trust me. No, I really believe it doesn't matter, but it matters. I mean, it's just so contradictory. Why have the conversation in this, using a word like existential passage? That sounds like religious crap. So why do it? Why impose it into the conversation? It's unnecessary. We just simply understand that I was a cue ball that came off of an assembly line. If the assembly line is still running, other cue balls will come off the assembly line. I can understand empathetically that what they're going to experience, and I can say, oh shit, that's bad. Somehow stop that. Either upgrade the status of cue balls or quit making cue balls. But yes, the slave thing has to stop. The torture has to stop. The agony has to stop. We got to fix this sick little game that's being played. So we can all understand that. So anyway, this video was just totally useless in my opinion, because it first introduces a fake religion, pretends it's not religion, isolates, separates itself, and says, no, woo is completely unnecessary, after they talk about it for 7 minutes. And in the end they say something like, do the best you can. What the fuck is that? That's not a rational statement. when the rational argument is if you understand what it is to be a cue ball, then stop cue balling. Stop the cue ball assembly line from producing cue balls. Whatever, do what you can bullshit. You gotta be a little more specific than that. So anyway, it's just, I just find it irritating. Like I said, he's got his agenda. He's some sort of religious person with the Jewish star crap and all that nonsense. So whatever, do whatever that bullshit is. I don't understand why you think I want to have conversations veiled in religious jargon when I couldn't be more hostile to that shit. I mean, I had a channel called Do Not God for a reason. Because I think it's a humiliation of intelligence, you fuck. So why are you badgering me with dragging me into conversations that have bullshit jargon and words, loaded language? You don't need loaded language to talk about the dilemma of the fact that we keep reliving the same, we keep reenacting the same play over and over. And it's a play where the actors really get stabbed and where real harm happens. And it's a really bad play. I can say that there's every interest in the actors in 1920 doing something so the show doesn't go on in 1940. They have every interest in understanding that it would be in their interest, so to speak, to stop this play from being recast, and reperformed over and over again. And you can understand the interest logically. You don't need religious woo to understand the incentive to stop torture once you know what torture is. Shit. So let's play some of this crap.
Death and Inmendham. Sometimes we sleep or nap. These would be periods of unconsciousness unless we are dreaming. They could be called gaps unfelt. Objectively, we are conscious for periods of time, but within our own subjectivity there is that element of felt eternalness.
Consciousness is never absent for itself. It takes myriads of forms, and objective interruptions do not interrupt consciousness for itself.
Yeah, so what? So how is that? Do you think that's a brilliant observation that no one realized before, that, yeah, I go to sleep every night, I'm completely out of the game, except for a little bit of cartoon dreaming, and somehow it doesn't bother me, doesn't really interrupt my continuum at all, and I just move along, and the little gaps don't mean much. Yeah, so what? Not interesting.
As long as we are aware, we feel as though we have always been aware since birth. Awareness is always being felt. As the brilliant Tom Clark puts it, from our point of view as subjects of experience, there are no gaps during the course of our conscious lives. He calls this phenomenon personal subjective continuity.
Yes, right, more jargon. Personal subjective continuity. Who cares? We're perfectly aware of the fact that we are actually gone. We're out for hours. We know that stuff happens while we're asleep. I mean, it's not something we're not aware of, that, oh yeah, I was asleep. I wasn't in the game. So we do know what that is. So yes, we experience being dead, for half of our lives, well, a third of our lives anyway, we experience being dead. But that doesn't mean we experience dying. So, big difference. It certainly makes death less scary to recognize that, well, you could have been asleep for 20 years, like Rip Van Winkle or something, and you wouldn't have known the difference. You could have been asleep for 1 billion years, and you wouldn't have known the difference. You could have been asleep for 1 trillion years, and you wouldn't know the difference. Obviously, it's not that you go to some horrible place when you're gone. So, you can gain great comfort out of understanding that, gee, not playing isn't some kind of negative thing. It's quite benign, quite harmless.
Though, objectively, a person falls in and out of being aware, subjectively that person is always being aware, for he cannot feel as not being aware, be conscious of being unconscious. Hence, death or oblivion or nothingness is not a fact for sentience.
Well, again, it's not a fact for sentience. As I just pointed out, it's a fact we're perfectly aware of, so you can say it's not a fact, but it sort of is a fact. We do know that's what we are, and but again, see, he's almost selling it like he's selling an argument to people who are afraid to be dead, when the simple argument of people who are afraid to be dead is, yeah, sleeping doesn't, well, you're not afraid to go to sleep, and that's the same thing as being dead. It's just it's not permanent. You know, and you're not going to know the difference once you're asleep and it's permanent. You're not going to know the difference. Jeez.
Picking up where it left off. There will be no perceived gap. Even though it is a new person, new memories, etc., it is still the same line of awareness.
Alright, so the same line of awareness. See, this is the kind of rhetoric that's in there. It's just this useless rubble. It's not the same line of awareness. The crocodiles don't inherit awareness. The pool balls don't inherit awareness. It's just nonsense. They're machined that way. They come off the assembly line aware. The awareness isn't something they have to go inject it like an ingredient somewhere. Well, we have to inject the awareness. We have to pull it out of the dead corpse and shove it into the living new thing. No, it doesn't work that way. It's just bullshit. It's just an ingredient. Brains are just tools invented by evolution because they make things more survivable, and that's all it is. The awareness part is just a byproduct. The nature didn't care about that. It just wanted the better functionality. And, you know, doesn't mean anything. But clearly it does mean something that you, through being aware, through being a pool ball, you know what it is to be a pool ball. And so when you see the other pool balls coming off the assembly line, you can go, oh shit, that's trouble coming. Whoa, 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 don't do that one. No, bad color, bad color. You can see it happening, and you can say, that's got to stop. There's no good reason for that. That's the only logic we need here, is to understand something bad's going to happen and say, stop it.
This would be the same as what happens at your death, except the shell would have a more dramatic transformation. Given fell eternalness.
There's no transformation. You're dead. When you're dead, you're dead. There won't be any transformation. There's going to be a new pool ball on a new pool table someplace else. It's going to get nicked and bent a whole different way, and it's not going to have any kind of character automatically of your character. It just isn't going to be there. But there certainly will be pool tables that are both in smoky rooms with beer stains and people with cues with no tip on them, and they are hitting the ball with the wood, and they're chipping the acrylic off the ball. And so yeah, there's going to be balls that end up looking the same, kind of tattered and bent and chipped and messy, but they didn't get there through any continuum, through any entanglement. They didn't become each other in any other way than through the accident of numbers and probabilities, and doesn't make the tie any less. There's no reason. You don't need to do this stupid spiritual shit to get the idea that there's a commonality between the things. It's the same play, and the actors are different, but they're reading the same script. The knife goes into the guts the same way. You don't need spiritualism to get that.
Sentient robot. If a shell hop can occur in
a sentient robot, like that's going to ever happen. Just complete nonsense, but whatever. We're sentient robots, for fuck's sake. There's no difference. We're so fucking completely owned by the world that programmed us, the experiences that programmed us. There's no difference. We're already sentient robots. Making me out of steel and having my brain still feel, or have a synthetic brain that's feeling, it's no different. It's just an irrelevant conversation, though.
In me, so that I end up as a new person, we still should not suppose that for me, I go into nothingness and a new person comes out of nothingness. Rather, we have a continuous, instantaneous following on of one experience from the other. So what I want to say is...
But it isn't one from the other. There's 7 billion people on Earth now. Where do all those souls or all those awarenesses come from? Is it what, gorilla awarenesses got elevated to human awarenesses? There's just no need for any idea of a direct connection or any entanglements between the present and the past, any hard entanglements, or the present and the future. The entanglements are just reasoned understanding that what those people were just like me, in the sense that they were just people, and those were people in the future, and they're going to have these different vulnerabilities, and there's going to be a certain percentage of them that are going to relive my bad role in the play.
If there are no subjective, this is the point I just made, if there are no subjective gaps between you and the someone altered you, why should there be any gaps between you and the resulting new?
Well, here, I mean, it's just so kind of silly to think that there's no gaps in our life when our life has to start with us being a babbling baby, and you know, then we have to go through this whole maturation thing, and then, you know, it takes us maybe years or decades to acquire any reasonable skills at playing the game. You know, we're such amateurs most of our life in terms of our knowledge base and you know, our capacity to understand what a good risk is and all that kind of shit. So it's all tons of recklessness years that we have to live through all over again, learning. There's absolutely no continuum of you get smarter and smarter and smarter, and it just keeps progressing. Especially when you look at human culture and how base it becomes, how it has a good 10 years in one decade, I mean one century, and then it takes another whole century before it has another good 10 years where it actually seems like the human race has a brain.
To quote William Shakespeare, what's in a name? What's in Inmendham? Inmendham is a label for bracketed awareness, a person that has certain memories, personality traits, habits, beliefs, physical attributes, and resides in Mendham.
And that is also the end of the characteristics that define you, your person.
Yeah, right, exactly. So it's just a color, shape, nicks, scars, and there will be, in the future, people who will fall into these categories of victim, unlucky, whatever. And rational people understand that they wouldn't want to have to keep living that life over and over again.
Personality is encoded in your brain, your behavior, all your habits, all your movements, everything that people recognize about you is physical, ultimately. The way your face looks, the way your voice sounds, your perks of personality are neurally encoded. When the brain goes, you go. When the body goes and the brain goes, that's it.
Yes, right. So why any of this stupid woo conversation? Why bother talking about existential passage or talking about some kind of awareness jumping? No, completely unnecessary. Old pool ball breaks into pieces, rots, gets thrown in the garbage, new pool ball comes off the assembly line. Not connected in any direct way at all.
Anything that comes after this, don't suppose that I'm positing something that's going to survive death, that is recognizable to you. That's not what I'm going to be talking about.
Right, so you're just talking woo.
If we performed surgery on Gary and changed just a few of those characteristics, it would still be recognizably Gary.
Well, again, he wouldn't be if you changed the important one, so more irrelevancy. So then he takes clips from my videos where I'm talking about free will and other subjects and tries to bend them into this bullshit subject, which is kind of annoying. I mean, straw man.
As a person.
But it has nothing to do with anything called you. It has to do with your brain, okay? So it's just a me brain, your brain, that's all it is. There is no free anything. There is no true I, okay? There's just a combination of reflexes that we decide.
Wow, always clever with editing there. A little juggling in the background. It's kind of funny.
To call ourselves.
A quote person is just a concept used for pragmatic reasons, convenience. A person is just a deification of a particular set of memories intertwined with a specific...
Yes, and they are specific, and that's the whole point, is that the diversity of us is what confuses us, because we don't see each other as, oh yeah, that's my twin brother, you know. It's very hard to do that with almost anybody on this planet. I mean, you can find some people you can make some connection to and say, yeah, we rock each other, we get it. But it's a tiny number of people, because we have so many features of our identity and our understanding and our sensibilities. You know, there's so many things that trigger us. Just the wrong smell, the wrong color, the wrong texture. You know, we're just so sensitive to the repulsiveness of diversities.
And it is subjective to the exact point when such a locus of awareness becomes a new person. If new...
Some more locus words, all this, you know, it's just too much like religious talk.
Memories are added or removed. One could say that Inmendham becomes a new person each second at each point in metaphysical time, or every time you...
Yeah, well, obviously I don't become a new person. That's one of the only charms of this stupid life thing, is that there's a certain continuity and consistency between who I consider myself to be and my identity. And you know, I see myself as a very true colored pool ball. I never switched sides or changed color. You know, I was always on the right side.
Turns his camera on.
Now, also just as clear, the awareness I have is the same awareness that Benjamin Franklin had, or Attila the Hun had, or Bingo the dancing elephant had.
Right. So I'm using the word awareness just in a simple sense of being conscious, sensing, being alive, feeling. Being sensate is how I'm using the word awareness. No need to pass it from one thing to another. No need to say it's the same in any real way. It's just the same in a pragmatic, practical way.
That idea of being conscious and sensate, yes, all of these things have that, and the things living in the future are going to have that.
Inmendham admits that his awareness is the same awareness as others. Given that nothingness or death is not a factor for awareness, the awareness occupied by Inmendham will not be thrown into the void, but pass over.
Again, I don't care. Why would I care about being thrown into the void? What is that? So again, that's why this sounds like religion. Why would I be afraid of being thrown into the void? I like the idea of being thrown into the void. The idea of being left alone for a trillion, zillion, billion, gazillion years sounds goddamn good to me. Why do I want to play a stupid risk game? Why do I want to go? I don't go to Las Vegas. It isn't something that I do. I don't need to gamble. I don't need to be an asshole. I'm perfectly satisfied just saying, fuck it. It's stupid game. Why would I want to play stupid game and risk being a slave? And risk being a cancer victim, and risk being all these negative things I could be. Why would I want to play a stupid game? So why would void bother me at all? See, that's why this sounds like religion. We got to escape somehow the void. The void is the scary part. When we go into the void every fucking night, you go to sleep, you go into the void. What's so bad about the void? The void seems perfectly fine. No problems. Void the fuck out of me.
To a new center of awareness, such as a brain or whatever else can host awareness.
Who expected death? Well, normal death and birth, what each of us will undergo, is a natural extreme case of radical transformation and generic expected continuity. That's what I claim about normal birth and death. It's a transformation. It's just what? There's no continuity.
There's no transformation. No, it's just such bullshit. You're done. You're no longer an actor in the bad play, and some other people are going to be the actors in the bad play. But they're still going to be people. Crocodile, 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 crocodile. You're not confused when you see crocodiles. You're not confused to saying, oh, I don't understand what a crocodile is if I'm not a crocodile. No, you understand.
There's no someone that you've been transformed into.
Well, the awareness is, you could say we're made out of a checkerboard with checkers. The awareness is the checkers being in the shape of like Groucho Marx's outline. Awareness is a very specific arrangement of the checkers.
Is awareness akin to a set of checkers arranged in a certain way? This assumes that a brain is needed for sentience.
Alright, so this part is the wackiest part. So I forgot about this. So these assholes somehow think awareness is some other feature than a manifestation of the programming inside of brains, the arrangement of the brain. Just like a CPU gets hot, our brains do this consciousness thing. But it's just an illusion in our heads. It's just created by the program. The screen, the theater seat, it's all just a manufactured in the brain. It doesn't exist as anything in the real world. It just exists in an internal perception. But the fact is that in trying to synthesize some notion of value, where like food would have value to me or the sexy bitch would have value to me, the evolution in trying to synthesize value in the real world created real value in our brains by creating sensation. Sensation is the only real value in the universe, and it's just being used as a whip to force us to play a bad game. And that's all it is. It's totally an abuse of value, an indignity to value, to be forced, orchestrated, manipulated by this real valuable thing that is being threatened. We're threatened with torture if we don't play the game.
No doubt neural activity is correlated with conscious states, but this doesn't prove that neural activity causes conscious states.
Yeah, it's just stupid. So yeah, I'll get to the end. That's just fucking nonsense. It's just you fucking idiots. What do you think feet are conscious? You don't understand the connection, right? Oh yeah, well because bullets seem to look like they fly out of guns, it doesn't mean the bullets come out of guns. I mean, it's just so fucking stupid.
Will decompose. The awareness will continue on. Perhaps Inmendham will become in Korea. And this gives us a rational reason to fight suffering. I wouldn't want to be in North Korea when I pass away.
Yeah, well, I can't even say for sure, depending on who's in Korea fighting what and doing what. I can't say which world is worst world to be a victim in. Where's it worse to be a slave in? Where's the worst humiliation? You know, North Korea or in Washington D.C. There's lots of disgusting ways to live out your life. I would argue that those people living in a simpler life might have more integrity in their interactions with each other than the common assholes in our higher civilization. But what putrid puke.
So at that, anticipate somethingness. Okay? Consciousness is always there, and for better or for worse, some lives are lovely, some lives are difficult.
Blah, 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 glib, 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 for better or for worse. I mean, it's just this... No, it's for worse, it's bad. This whole idea of imposing potential torture on things, you can't clean it up, you can't fix it. It's a harsh, brutal imposition, and just, well, they're better or worse. No, it's worse, asshole. It's bad.
So, what can we suggest? Make the best of it.
Blah, 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 blah. So, why the fuck does this asshole think I'd have anything good to say about some glib asshole who says make the best of it in this vague, nonsensical, rubbishy way? There's nothing to make the best of. There's everything to fight against. God. Anyway. But I mean, that whole nonsense about consciousness not being a brain function, I mean, fuck! Too fucking silly. It just wants to be, it's just God botherer stuff. He wants to make the fairy tale somehow. He's trying to turn it into a drama of some kind. Battle between, some silly God characters. Just whatever. Just, So, anyway. Difficult subject, like I said, because I've tried to deal with it lots of times, and you just get accused of, injecting some kind of spiritual notions by just pointing out how this continuum, okay, there's just marginal differences. The names change, but the roles are the same. The brutality is the same. The choking death is the same. And the rest of those details about, our exact character and our exact, intelligence doesn't really have anything to do with, the rats are eating each other's feet off. Alright, enough. So anyway. Till the next time and such. I mean, it sort of relates to another video. What's her name? Carrie McCarpet made a video, a really long one, and she started off on Bitcoin and then turned that into some whole argument about back to nature crap or something. And so there's a lot of subjects in there probably worth nailing, but yeah, it's again just so irritating. These people defending nature. There's some natural game that was worth playing, and they're just such deniers of the truth. I mean, most apes die being killed by other apes. You know, they're not living in any kind of paradise. Our past wasn't any paradise. I mean, it's so stupid. The natural game sucks. It's about competition and conquest, and it's largely guided by no notion of deserve having anything to do with it. It's just opportunistic, you know, and brutal. And it's just, I mean, I just don't know why. Well, I know why, because, you know, they just keep reaching for some justification. They just keep reaching for some, you know, they scapegoat something so they can make something else look better than it is. And it just all sucks. Anyway, enough said. So, yeah, till the next video, whatever I choose it to be and such. I really want to try to start making some Linux videos, but I just don't seem to get to it. But I'm heading for it, hopefully. So, till next time. Some Santino videos. Yeah, I did post a couple of those up. Little tribute videos to Santino, old ones, but, you know, good ones. Anyway, really was a great cat. Miss him. So anyway, till next time. Such. It's like part of my personality. Partly.